This is Jonathan Agarfield, Pro Boxing Fans. We're here in Las Vegas, Canelo-Bivol fight week. I'm joined by Dan Rafael of Fight Freaks Unite, big fight weekend. Dan, first of all, just tell us a bit about what you're doing with your freelance work and who you're writing for. I kind of just told you, but anyway.
Well, no, like you said, I have my own my Substack newsletter, Fight Freaks Unite, and it's been a great, a tremendous amount of fun to work on that because I get to make all the decisions on what I write, when I write, how I write, what pictures I write, what headlines I write, and if it's a success, it's on me. If it stinks, it's on me. And I feel like I've been able to build something over the last not quite. It'll be a year in August, and I'm very humbled by the people that have decided to buy the paid version of it, and I appreciate that. So it's helping with the money and all, so that's always a good thing. But it's been a lot of fun to do that. People seem to really enjoy it. You can't get boxing fans to agree on anything, but everybody that I've heard from appreciates it and likes it, and so that heartens me. And Big Fight Weekend, I've worked out something with the owner of that website, TJ Reeves, a great guy, and we're working together and hoping to build it up and to do some bigger things. I'm going to write, on this fight, Canelo and Bivol, for that site as well as for my own newsletter, the same way I did last week for the Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson fight that I was also here in Las Vegas for, and just stay through for the week. So I'm keeping busy. It's a great thing.
Dan, obviously a big fight. Canelo stepping up again to light heavyweight. How do you compare this challenge against Bivol to Sergey Kovalev?
Oh, this is a much more complicated, tougher fight, in my opinion. Kovalev may have been a bigger puncher, one shot than Bivol is, but the problem is that Kovalev was not at his best, and also you're dealing with a fighter in Canelo Alvarez who's got one of the great chins of our time. I was just commenting, somebody asked me, are you surprised to see Canelo achieve what he's achieved based on where he came from when you first started to watch him? And I said I remember being at his first fight, it wasn't his first American fight. He might have had one or two in the States prior to that, but it was his first time being on a major TV undercard. And he got really badly rocked and almost stopped by Miguel Cotto's older brother, Jose Miguel Cotto, in the first round of that fight. I believe right here at the MGM Grand where we're sitting. And I'm like, this is the guy that all the hype is about? The guy doesn't seem like he's got a chin. I mean, he came back and he won the fight, but, he was fighting a much smaller man and he got badly hurt in that fight. And I said, ever since that moment, I haven't seen him hurt, struggle, in trouble, cut, knocked down, anything like that. He shook that off, and he's been a dominant fighter ever since, other than just the one decision loss to Floyd Mayweather. So, he's in the process of becoming an all-time great. And, Bivol is a tough opponent compared to Kovalev because he's fresher, he is younger, he is still undefeated, he's still in his prime, whereas Kovalev was not.
Before Canelo signed with Eddie Hearn again, there was reports that he was offered a 2-fight deal with PBC for Charlo and Benavidez. To your knowledge, why did he choose Eddie Hearn over PBC?
I think number one, he likes Eddie. I mean, I know the money is paramount, obviously, but and not that he dislikes the PBC people. They had a very good experience working with them for the Caleb Plant fight, but sometimes, you develop a relationship with somebody and you want to work with the people that you want to work with. You might like how they do business. You might like the way they treat you. You might like their staff. You might just like any number of different things. Clearly, Eddie is a great salesman, and Eddie has done great business for Canelo in the fights they were together. He liked him. The money was, I don't know the exact dollar figures, but they were in the ballpark close enough where one or the other wasn't going to be, so much greater or less than the other one. I think he liked the idea of winning another light heavyweight title. And as he said, to me in an interview at one point, I think to probably some of the other reporters also, it wasn't that he didn't have interest to fight a Benavidez or a Charlo, but his perspective was, what do they bring me? Benavidez doesn't have a title. Charlo is a champion at 160 pounds, but he doesn't have anything really to offer Canelo in the super middleweight division or the light heavyweight division because he would be challenging Canelo for his titles at super middleweight. So he didn't feel like there was anything to motivate him, other than the money. And he was going to make money wherever he went. So the Bivol fight he finds as a motivation because he is undefeated, he is a champion, and there's been so much fan desire for the third Golovkin fight, and that's obviously, from a financial point of view, the biggest one of all of them, that I think that's why he opted. And the way I perceived it, and I wrote about it, was it's great to be Canelo Alvarez because whichever deal he selected, we were going to get a series of good fights. If you give him Bivol or a Triple G, who could be disappointed with that, right? But if he goes and he fights Charlo or he fights Benavidez, who could be disappointed with that? You can only fight one guy at a time. If he gets through this deal that he's got presently and he takes care of Bivol, if he does well against Golovkin in the fall, there's absolutely no reason why those other fights can't be revisited in the next negotiation, because that's when he became a free agent, when he had the lawsuit with Golden Boy and DAZN and became free promotionally and broadcast. the whole point was short-term deals so I can guide myself and do the fights I want to do. So he's taken 1-fight deal, 2-fight deal, 2-fight deal. And he can certainly go back and try to do a Benavidez fight or a Charlotte fight or whoever else his team might be interested in, whether it's a cruiserweight champion. He's the king right now and he can call the shots.
Where Canelo said in previous interviews, those guys, like you mentioned, Benavidez, Demetrius Andre, Charlo, should all fight each other. Do you go along with that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I totally understand that. I mean, it's aggravating when you see talented fighters like those guys just wait around, like looking for the payday. There's something to be said by going out and earning it, by proving it, by showing the public, by showing the press, by showing the other side, like, hey, I'm serious. Give him a reason to be motivated to fight me. So if Charlo and Benavidez fought each other, let's say, and it was a good fight, which I suspect it would be, and somebody came out with a really decisive victory, that person's automatically going to become the fighter that the public and a lot of the press is going to say, okay, you should fight that guy because look what he just did to Charlo or look what he just did to Benavidez. And you earn it that way. Now, it also takes away another future opponent, at least right off the bat, because you're having them knock each other off. But I have no problem with that mentality from Canelo. He doesn't have to, he can fight who he wants. His legacy is established. It's in the process of growing every fight he has. And when you're on the top of the food chain, you get to pick and choose who you want to fight. And, you need to have those guys give you a reason to call your name. And if they fought each other and somebody comes out on top with a decisive win, that's in essence giving him a reason to call your name.
I saw you speaking to Bivol just before. What's his mindset like heading into this, and how do you expect the fight to play out?
Dmitry is a very poised fighter. He's not emotional. He's very reserved. I feel like he's very focused. I've interviewed Dmitry Bivol a number of times. I've covered several of his fights, and he never gets out of character. You wouldn't know if he was having a good day or a bad day. He's just a very, got the poker face. But he has a little bit of an underrated sense of humor. He was cracking a couple of jokes for us. So when I saw him make some jokes like that, I got the sense that it's a big stage, but he's not really feeling the pressure. Like, he's done this all his life. Yes, it's the biggest fight he's had, but sitting at a table talking to some reporters, it doesn't matter if it was a title fight from a couple years ago or a big fight on Saturday. It's just the same old thing. It's just part of the routine. So, whatever happens, I don't think it's going to be a kind of thing where people are going to say, oh, he froze under those big lights. He's been fighting on TV. He's been fighting in title fights for a long time. It's just that the guy across the ring from him is a much more famous, more popular, more well-known fighter. But to him, you got to train the same, whether you're fighting Canelo or you're fighting anybody else. His main goal is retain the title and move on. He did say that there is a rematch clause in this fight, so if Canelo should happen to lose, he'll have the option to fight him again. But he's a very calm, very reserved kind of guy. And tell you the truth, from the perspective as a journalist, he's really a pleasure to deal with because it's no nonsense. He doesn't, he's not looking to big time anybody. He's not looking to, condescend to you. Comes over, sits down, talks to you, answers your questions. I feel like, in a forthright manner. His English is massively improved from when I first met him a number of years ago when he first started to come here and fight in the United States on television. And, good luck to him. He's a class guy.
Can you remember a time before Canelo where a challenger going into a world title fight has a rematch clause?
Oh, many times. Oscar De La Hoya would have rematch clauses when he might not have been the champion. It was the case, in certain fights with Floyd before he had maybe won the title from a certain guy. It's not so much if you're the champion, but if you're the massive A side, you have the right to demand that. Certainly, if you're the champion, take for example, you're not necessarily obligated to give a mandatory or to give a rematch clause if you're the mandatory challenger. But how many times did when Vladimir Klitschko was heavyweight champion, he would fight mandatories and sweeten their purse to get the rematch clause just in case something bad happened. It's not really uncommon. So for Canelo to have a rematch clause against a non-champion is not a shock. He is the undisputed super middleweight champion, even though he's fighting for Bivol's light heavyweight title. But that's just the nature of the business.
And just moving on to the heavyweights, we saw Tyson Fury knock out Dillian Whyte a couple of weeks ago. What did you make of his performance and the subsequent, subsequent retirement?
Well, he fought. It was a good performance. Obviously, anytime you can go in there against the number one challenger in that kind of stage and win basically every round and score a very significant and very no doubt about it kind of knockout. You got to say it was a good performance. I didn't think it was the most exciting fight in the world. It was kind of a pedestrian fight, but Tyson fought a good fight. He did what he had to do. He totally dominated. And he scored a big booming knockout with one shot. So from that perspective, and also with the crowd and with the the atmosphere and everything and all the people there at Wembley. I mean, I unfortunately was not able to be there, but I know what it was like because I was there when Joshua fought Klitschko. And even though it was a few thousand less people, it was basically the same thing, and it was a much better fight. It turned out to be the 2017 fight of the year, and I still can hear that in my mind about the intensity of the crowd when they came into the ring, when Anthony got knocked down, when he finished Klitschko late in the fight, 10th round. So great event. A credit to the British fans for filling that place up. It's a big stadium. And I joke around with somebody, here at the MGM, it takes you 2 minutes to walk from the entrance to your seat at, where the press is. In Wembley, it's like a 15-minute walk because it's such a freaking big place. But it was a massive event. And as far as the retirement, I mean, everybody says, no, there's no way he's retired. I mean, he's been saying it so, it's not like he just said I'm retired like in a heat of the moment in a post-fight interview. He talked about it incessantly in the lead up to the fight. He sat down with different writers, different TV folks, and said, I'm done, I'm retiring, this is it, last rodeo, whatever. And then he said it again after the fight, other than maybe the desire to have the exhibition for a huge amount of money against like an Ngannou or do a wrestling event with WWE. But then and I don't really take too seriously the immediate words of a boxer in the ring after a fight because it's the heat of the moment, there's a lot of emotion, you've just been through the battle. But when the dust settles and then 3-4 days later you're going on the Piers Morgan show on a big national TV program in the UK and you specifically say, that's it, this is the truth, I am done, over and over again, are you just not to believe him? Now maybe he believes it, but that doesn't mean that he won't change his mind.
If he was to fight the winner of Usyk Joshua, or phrase this better, who do you think would give him the tougher fight out of those two?
I would favor him to win both fights, but just because of the quickness and being a southpaw and the overall skill set, you have to say it would probably be Usyk, which would be a weird-looking fight because Tyson is 6'9", and Usyk is maybe 6'3". He's even a couple inches shorter than Joshua. That said, and I'm a big Usyk fan as well as a Joshua fan and a Fury fan, but I kind of want to see him fight Joshua because it just makes it such a much bigger event. No knock on Usyk, but you saw the type of crowd and the excitement for a Dillian Whyte fight. Imagine if Joshua was able to win the rematch with Usyk, and now he's got 3 of the titles, and they're able to do a fight for the undisputed title. I mean, it blows away the level of the event of the Dillian Whyte fight and the Klitschko fight that Joshua had, for example. And it literally will be the biggest fight in the history of British boxing without even a shadow of a doubt.
And just finally, Tyson said he's the greatest heavyweight of all time.
Of course he did.
In your opinion, can he go down as an all-time great without beating the winner of Usyk Joshua?
I mean, I feel like if he doesn't fight the winner of that fight, that there will be a spot lacking on his legacy. I mean, he's had a great career. I don't take that away from him. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's an undefeated champion. He's beaten the guys that he had to beat. But I would be hard-pressed to say he's in the top 10 heavyweights of all time. Now, there's 2 ways to look at it. There's one way is, on any given night, can Tyson Fury at his best, like the guy that beat a Wilder in the 3rd fight or the guy that beat Dillian Whyte, on his best night, can he beat all the other greats in the game? And the answer would be, either he beats them or they're competitive. I mean, there's nobody you could think of in history, partly because of his size, that he's not going to be in the fight with. But then you think, if I'm ranking top 10, it's like that encompasses their entirety of their career. So with the level of opposition he has had, with some great wins, but not a lot of them, how do you put him ahead of like an Ali? How do you put him ahead of, a Lennox Lewis even, or a Klitschko who fought in 29 World Championship fights? Now he might, which is the all-time record, he might not have had, the rival like a Deontay Wilder, but he fought everybody of his time other than his brother for obvious reasons. So, there's schools of thought on that. So I would say that at the moment, I can't, in good conscience, as great as Tyson is, put him in that top 10. Now, if he goes and he becomes undisputed against the Usyk Joshua winner, maybe has a couple more defenses and that sort of thing. He's still a young guy, relatively speaking. He certainly is capable of becoming that. But at the moment, based on the lack of longevity, absolutely not, in my mind.
And honestly, final one, we saw Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury here a few months ago, and one of the great fights we've ever seen. Do you think he comes back? He's obviously highly rated with the WC still. If Tyson Fury retires, vacates, he's in line for another title shot. But do you think he'll come back?
I mean, I would think so. I mean, Deontay is a competitor. He maybe, he's taken some time to just, heal himself. I mean, it was a tough, rugged fight in terms of physical, number one, but also mentally. But while I personally have not spoken to Deontay since that fight, I have spoken to his trainer, Malik Scott, a few times, and I speak regularly with his manager, Shelly Finkel, and both of them have said that absolutely Deontay will be back. It's just a matter of, against who and when. The original thought was he might be back sometime around this time, maybe May, June. Obviously, that's not going to happen. Based on, if he was coming back May, June, the fights would already be set up. But I think we'll see him back probably in the later part of the year. It's just going to be maybe a little bit longer. And really, if he comes back in the fall, it wouldn't even be really a full. It'll be a year or a little less than a year since the fight, which is in today's boxing game for a fighter at that level coming off that kind of fight to take 10, 11, 12 months, 13 months off is really not a big thing. That fight was, when was that, in October?
Yeah.
So he still has a chance to fight within 1 year. To me, the question is, what kind of opponent are they going to get? Is it going to be, let's get yourself back in the groove, or are they going to want to go right into a significant fight? Like you said, he is highly rated by the WBC. If Tyson happens to officially retire, which I feel like would mean he would vacate that title, it's possible he might fight a quality opponent. I know this, as a boxing fan, Deontay Wilder has been as fun to cover and watch as anybody, and I hope he comes back and can climb back on the horse and do it again.
Is he arguably in the Who Needs Me club without a title on the line with his ridiculous one-punch power? Who's going to want to face him?
People are going to want to face him because whether he has a title or not, they're going to get paid.
All right, well, Dan, appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of the fight week, all right?